Welcome. I am very happy to announce that this is the second, not annual, it's the second Vietnam Remembrance. And we had one 2 years ago, and some of the people that were in the audience are now in the panel. So if there's anyone who here has Vietnam experience, would you stand up so we can give you a nice clap. And afterwards, when we have questions and answers, I'd like to call on each one of you to say just a few words about yourself too. Okay, now this is going to be a very interesting panel where I gave them the option of telling one story. All of you. And then we're going to open it up for some discussion. A couple of topics that we'd like to look at are Canada and the welcome, or the lack of welcome back. So we're going to do that a little later, and then we'll open it up for your questions too. Okay, our first speaker is Ron Mongo. He was corporal, and some of you have had advances in rank since then, but we're going with what you were in between 67 and 69. Isn't it interesting? They all had their experience between those two dates. He was a corporal, and he served as a Marine, rifleman, and machine gunner with the 3rd Battalion, 4th Marines, H&S Company from December 1967 to January 1969. He was first stationed in Cam Lo, is that right? In Khe Sanh, and then operations in the DMZ area throughout his tour. Please help us welcome. Your story. Stand up, Ron. You doesn't have to stand up.
You want to tell my whole story or just a little something?
About 5 to 8 minutes.
5 to 8 minutes. Yeah. Anyway, welcome all of you here today. I went over there in December '67. I flew in from Los Angeles out to Okinawa, Japan, and then they immediately flew me out to Vietnam. And my rear area at the time was Dong Ha. And from there, they then choppered us out to Cam Lo. And I was there for a brief period, and I was attached to 1-9. And then they moved us over. They again flew us again over to Khe Sanh. Little did I know at the time, as much whatever training they gave us in the Marine Corps down in San Diego and Camp Penland was definitely not enough to put us in the situation that I realized I was into. When I got to Khe Sanh, it became very difficult to say the least. We kept getting bombed and hit by mortars and rockets and all kinds of things, and of course they sometimes hit our ammo bunkers, and it really alerted me to what Vietnam is really all about, because even though I started off in Cam Lo, we were doing basically patrol trying to sweep an area. And we did get fired upon by snipers, and we did get a few of them along the way. But from there, they then transferred us to Khe Sanh, and I got to tell you, it was an experience like I've never experienced before, and probably never will. From there, we did numerous operations throughout the year. In June, I went on R&R, and that was to Taipei, and needless to say, I really didn't want to be there, primarily because I felt that I had left my team behind. And so I spent the 5 days and got back in, and where I felt more comfortable, even though as difficult as it is to understand, when you've been fighting, militarily speaking, then it's very difficult to try and take you out of that situation and put you back in. You just want to stay there. You don't want to be on R&R. So anyway, continued doing operations throughout that time. I got wounded by shrapnel, and I Later on, I got wounded in November, and I woke up on the hospital ship, the Repos, and they gave me another Purple Heart there, so I ended up with 2 Purple Hearts during my tour. When I came back to the States, it was very difficult, to say the least, to come back to your home country, because when I arrived at the airport, a lot of people were against the war, and they definitely showed it. I had a lot of difficulty just understanding why they were reacting that way. Matter of fact, when we first landed, I didn't even realize we had arrived in the United States because of the people's reactions. Coming back, I got home and I felt very disoriented. I felt like I should not be there, that I should be back in Vietnam. And there were times when I felt I wanted to go back, but I didn't. I remained. I became very separated from my family and moved in my own place, and I began having all kinds of nightmares continuously, not being able to sleep at night. Through the years, a lot of things happened, a lot of PTSD problems, post-traumatic stress disorder problems, and a lot of events occurred in my life as a result of the Vietnam experience, and I never understood that I was different. That was one of the key things for me. It wasn't until a little over a year ago that I joined in at the Vet Center up in Ventura, and being part of a group, and 2 of my members are here today, and I appreciate their coming. But I learned a lot through them, talking things out, getting an understanding that everything that I've been going through for the last almost 50 years was the result of Vietnam. It's not a normal condition that most people go through. When I went to Vietnam, I was only 20 years old. And at 20 years old, you're just a kid. And so I'm still dealing with a lot of issues today. I still even get, a little over a year ago, I had a piece of shrapnel come out of my arm, about the size of a piece of rice, and apparently it was stuck in my muscle, and I didn't realize it at the time. But I've had a lot of issues that I've been trying to cover at the Vet Center, and these 2 guys are 2 of the best people that I've ever worked with as far as discussing events that happened in Vietnam and trying to get me back to where I should be as a human being. My lovely wife is very supportive of me and the things that I went through. Even though we've only known each other 10 years, it's been really quite a journey for her. And that's about it. Any questions? Yes?
How many, it's unique to have 1 Purple Heart. Do you know how many veterans have 2 Purple Hearts like you? Because it seems like it would be a pretty special group.
No, but these 2 gentlemen here that are part of our group has received a number of awards. Pete here has received the Silver and Bronze Star, and I don't know although this gentleman right here, stand up for a second, would you? He not only went to Vietnam, but he's also served, I think, in Afghanistan.
Iraq
and Desert Storm. He just can't get enough of the military, I guess. But anyway, he also got several medals. I received medals, other than the 2 Purple Hearts, I received meritorious unit commendations and other medals as a result of the type of fighting that we did over there, Quezon and a lot of other operations that were major wins on our part, but still, we still lost the war. And what they called it really wasn't a war, but we've always known it as such. But we just, as veterans of the Vietnam War, we just want recognition from the VA and from the United States of what we did, because it was a harrowing experience for everyone that served over there. As far as the medals, I don't know, I don't keep track that at all. Actually, it took me a number of years before I realized that I had these 2 medals along with some other medals. So I've managed to get to the point now where I know all the medals that I have, and that's about it. Any other questions? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a Vietnam era veteran. I wasn't lucky enough to go to Vietnam, but let me ask you just a general question, just to get your feeling about it. whatever the goal was, did we accomplish our goal? And do you feel that we did what we were supposed to do and everything worked out well for us?
Okay, this was a war that a lot of people didn't want to recognize, and they were upset that we were over there. It's the first war that was televised, so there's a lot of stuff that went on the news, mostly tragic things, because that's the way the media sees it. So there were a lot of differences between Americans that fought over there and how the citizens of the United States were. What was the other part of your question?
Do you think we accomplished our goal?
We did the best we could. We were definitely a fighting machine, whether it be Army, Navy, Air Force, or Marines. We didn't win the war, unfortunately, and it's really a tragedy. Honestly, in my personal thing is that we should have never gone there, actually. I don't think we had a chance to begin with, only because you got to remember that France and some other nations had fought them already, and the Vietnamese had all these tunnels, and it made it very difficult for us to know where these tunnels were, and once we did, we took care of them. But we fought a war that I felt we should not have been involved in at all.
Jim Daniels' military career spanned 26 years and 3 wars, World War II, Korea, and Vietnam. In 1968, he was a senior chief and an equipment operator for the Seabees in Vietnam. He was deployed to Phu Bai on January 8, 1968, and served for 9 months. This was the same year as his son William joined the Navy. On January 31st, 1968, Senior Chief Jim Daniels earned a Purple Heart for injuries sustained during a rocket attack. Just 11 days earlier, an RPG had hit his son, Bill, who was with the MCD-5 in Dong Ha. Is that right? Just 50 miles away. Bill, who earned a Purple Heart, would not make a full recovery, succumbing to his injuries on February 23rd, 1973.
Thank you, Benjamin. Well, I was very young when I came in. I was 16, and all the friends I run around with and volunteered to go in because they were a year and a half to 2 years older than me. But finally, after 2 months talking to my father to sign the papers that I was 17, we went down and I had orders to report to a new base in Virginia. And that was a battalion of over 1,300 men and officers, and after a month or so of having some training on the beach and barbed wire entanglement, field fortifications, then when there was sun was shining, we got to march a little bit. And the rest of the time, we're spending a long building teaching us how to fight with machetes. Then they busted it up into different units, and I was assigned a unit. We came here for our training, get our weapon and rifle range and all, and then overseas we went. And so I served on 7 different islands in World War II. Then I went to the other wars after that. But I enjoyed my 26 years and 3 months, and I would do it over again if I had to. A lot of people, they just can't wait to get out. Well, I had a lot of training, received my education and everything else while I was in the service, because I never went one day of high school. But I knew I had to have it to go up for chief and all, and I wanted to be an instructor. So I took the GED and passed it. And when I left Guam after 3 years, I put in for instructor. And I served 5 years at that one school, then with battalion, and back to school command again, and battalion to Vietnam. So the outfit I was with in Vietnam, I had 175 men in my company, and we had a lot of work that we were doing. And the outfit that we were relieving had never been hit all the time that they were there. Well, 2 days before the advance party left there, we got hit one evening, and I lost 3 men right off the bat. They didn't get killed, but they were tore up enough that they were shipped home, and finally, when they were able to, they give them medical retirements. But another time, when I got hit, I was running for the line when I got lifted up and landed on a slab of concrete and got a concussion. That's why I'm wearing 2 hearing aids. And both my ears bleed quite a bit. But if I had to do it over again, I would. I have a lot of friends that we talk about it all the time.
You were indispensable over in Vietnam, right?
I don't think
No,
so.
for the water, making the water.
Oh, yeah, no, I made the water in, my second island I was on. I had 4 distills making water and keeping a 10,000 gallon tank filled out in the harbor for ships as they were leaving, would fill up with fresh water. But they needed someone at another island to operate just one machine. And I was the only one that had experience on it. I had
So
a
you
good
were
friend.
indispensable.
I had a good friend that taught me everything about equipment. And it was quite an experience. I enjoyed it. Any questions?
Your experience in Vietnam versus the other wars, were they different? Or, I mean, how are they alike or how are they different?
They were different because you never knew.
Use the mic.
It's on. It's good.
Yeah, you never knew when you were going to be hit. And many times we manned the line and nothing. And there's times that we did, and there was, we were all tense all night long on the line.
It's always scary. Thank you again. Frank Nauman was drafted in March of 1967 and ended up in Vietnam 5 months later as a slick sleeve Army private E2. I didn't write this. His military occupational specialty was clerk typist. He claims because he took a typing class at Oxford High School in 1962 and earned a D grade. He worked in officer personnel at Engineer Command at Long Binh. After a few months, he became the Officer Efficiency Report clerk, big promotion, when the former clerk rotated out. He returned home in October 1968 as a specialist E5 after 19 months, and I'll let him tell the rest.
Okay, I was born and raised here in Oxnard, and I consider my time in service as living a charmed life, because I was drafted in March of '67, and there was a big build-up time, and so I went to basic training at Fort Lewis, Washington, and kind of optimistic about getting some cushy job, you know, eat something easy. but I got advanced infantry training and got sent to Fort Polk, Louisiana. So we got down there, and we were processing into the post, and this specialist comes out and rattles off 4 or 5 names. My name was one of them, and he says that, well, we're looking for people that have had typing experience. And that big old D just stuck up and jumped at him, I guess. And so that's where he says, okay, you guys are no longer in the infantry, you're going to be clerks. So I spent 8 weeks at Fort Polk working in an office and kind of learning how to make coffee and got familiar
Major
with
life skills.
got familiar with the good old Underwood typewriter again that I used in high school 5 years prior in 1962. And so I got orders for Vietnam, and I'd been in the service for 4 months, 2 at Fort Lewis and 2 at Fort Polk, and so I got a 30-day leave to come home, and then I reported up to Oakland for transportation to Vietnam, and we flew over in a big old beautiful TWA jet airliner, 6 across, and one thing kind of interesting that happened on that flight is that we passed by Iwo Jima, and the pilot said that he had time on his schedule and that he would circle the island and let us take a look at it. So that was pretty neat to see that island and to visualize it from the air, and to see the color that it was, because most of the pictures that I'd seen, of course, were always in black and white, and the famous photo of the Marines raising the flag, of course, is the one that really sticks out in my mind. But we flew right over the volcano and looked down into Mount Suribachi. So when I get to Vietnam, we landed at Benoit Air Force Base, and then another fortunate thing happened, just like at Fort Polk. The Engineer Command had a liaison guy at Replacement Battalion, and they were looking for clerk typists to work at a place called Engineer Command that was right there at Long Bend. So he must have saw that D again, and they said, boy, this guy is great, man. There's D for defense. So it was a pretty safe place, as safe as safe could be in Vietnam. We had a dry, we had hooches and a dry place to sleep at night, and we had good mess hall and PXs and clubs and entertainment, and so like Beverly said, I was 6 months as a clerk typist, and then I moved into the officer efficiency report clerk, and did that for the rest of my term. But I saw the Bob Hope Show on Christmas Day, 1967 at Long Bend, along with about 30,000 other troops, and some other entertainers. Connie Francis was there, and even Martha Ray did Hello Dolly, I saw that. And went on 2 R&Rs, went to Hong Kong and Bangkok, and then they came out. I was getting close to my my DROS date, the date eligible return overseas, and they came out with this new set of rules that if you extended your tour in Vietnam till you had less than 5 months left on your enlistment, that you could get out early. So I extended my tour over there for about 3 months, and I got a 5-month drop at that date. So That's why I say I had a charmed life for being drafted into the Army, you know, almost going into the infantry, but just getting out by the skin of my teeth. And it was, and then serving 19 total months in the service was unbelievable. Just kind of easy money, I guess. So I didn't experience any anti-Vietnam stuff when I came home. I kind of just blended in. All my friends and family were glad to see me and happy that I came back and went through it and completed my duty. And I never had any problems with anybody starting anything. But I have a really bad feeling about the people that went to Canada. I just don't think, if they're gonna leave to get out of serving their country, then they should just stay where they went and they shouldn't be allowed back. So, summing up, I just am proud that I reported for duty as requested, and I went where they sent me, I did what they told me, and I left and came home as soon as I could. So that's my story.
I know some friends of mine that was in the rear, and they had jobs in supply or being an office, we call boats, the office boat. At night, though,
We call ourselves the Chairborne Rangers.
there you go. You're wrong. At nighttime, though, they would take perimeter watch on the base. Did you guys do that?
Yeah, we had guard
So you were
duty,
out there.
yeah. In fact, after I left, the second tet, you know, not the 68 one, the 69, I got letters from guys, and they actually attacked the perimeter.
Yeah.
And I had a friend that, a lot of the guys in our office had been through because it was engineer, they were combat engineers. And so this one guy, he fired his M60 quite a bit at nighttime during that time.
All right, so you guys took security and stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Any more questions? Tony Murgia served in the U.S. Army as a first lieutenant. That's not how he retired. He retired as a lieutenant colonel. He arrived in Vietnam initially assigned to 1st Cavalry Division Airmobile in October 1968. He was promoted to first lieutenant and assigned as platoon leader for C Company, 2nd Battalion, 12th Cavalry. So Tony, what did you do in Vietnam?
Killed commies from Army.
Hoorah.
Well, I was set up, wasn't
I
I?
absolutely set you up for that. Because the fact of the matter is, I look at that chair over there, and I sat in that chair as a young man because there's a barber shop down the street. When you I got drafted along with 33,000 other people in July of '66, some 51 years ago. And made a decision early on that I was going to become an officer and pursue the profession of arms. It was an adventure that lasted 27 years. My wife, Linda, was with me for those 27 years. Our first anniversary, I was en route to Vietnam. Left her at the airport with my daughter in her hands. So that was an adventure. Vietnam was an adventure. As you indicated, I was a platoon leader and an occasional company commander, because company commanders had a way of getting shot and killed. And as a senior platoon leader in the bushes, I would assume command. Sal Gonzalez, who just joined us, was actually a company commander with the 25th, if I recall. Special Forces. Guys with green beanies. But you asked for a story when we talked. I have a great deal of apprehension when I see military working dogs. It was outside of LZ Grant, which is at the foot of Nui Ba Din in War Zone C outside of Tainan, city of Tainan. And there was a water point, and so we walked out, and in the first cab, when we set up during the day, we would set out trip flares that would warn us if anybody would come up, and we call those daylight trick-or-treats. And lo and behold, one goes up, and I'm in the barrel, so I walk out, and I said, can I take the dog with me? And one of the things they tell you about a military working dog is, how do they alert? And you ask, how long have they been in the field? And so I answered all those questions. Little did I know that the dog was tired. And so we go diddly bopping out, and the dog and his handler go right by a guy that was encountered, because when this trip flare went up, we shot mortars in that general direction, because we already laid onto that spot. And the young man, the Vietnamese soldier, took a round in the ass. And so I went out and I took him prisoner, and then his friends came back around, and we got into another really good firefight. And we interrogated him, and he said something about some rice, and so we evacuated him, and off we went. We fought for 4 days, and I got out in front of my troops, which was a really dumb thing to do, because the stunning reality of bullets flying by you at a very close, and an RPG landing behind you in the bushes knocks you on the ass because you take a lot of shrapnel, and I took it in my neck, back, and ass. And so later on that day, I got medevaced. But we walked into about 50 tons of rice. And so we had to make a decision what to do with the ice, with the rice. And has anybody ever know what happens when you blow it up? You get puffed rice. And so then they brought the Chinooks in, and we took it all out. And then we continued up, and we fought for about 4 or 5 days after that. In retrospect, leading soldiers, I had anywhere from 28 to 33 folks in my platoon, though I was authorized 44. In our company, we had authorized 120. We generally had around 90 or so. As you look at some of the footage from the Vietnam War, you see these guys on the helicopters. And I had 57 combat assaults. Several landings were hot, several extractions were hot. That means the bad guys were shooting at you. 5 of those out of the 63, 57 and 63, 5 were in Chinooks, which were the big helicopters, and that was basically a safe transport. In retrospect, I spent 10 months in the bushes. I was a fighter. I sprung 11 ambushes, mainly, and most of those, actually all of those were at night. And so we did our best work. And so when you hear that the Army has to own the night, it's true, because we do our best work at night. I could still see at night, and I'm sure Sal and several other people could still see very well at night, because we've been trained to do that. During those 10 months, just about daily contact, getting shot at, being sniped at, having contact, or being mortared. Being mortared always bothered me, because you didn't know where the rounds were going to fall. Being shot at, that's a different story, because you basically know where the fight's coming from, except when you're moving around the perimeter to reinforce your platoon or do what you need to do. D-Rose, actually before D-Rose, went to Hawaii for R&R. I encountered my wife, and I really didn't want to go back. I wanted to stay with my wife. And to this day, the last, 10 or 15 years, we've gone to Hawaii every June, and we still walk over to the reef where we had R&R at, and we chuckled and, thank our stars that we're still around. And we stay at the Heli Cove, which is a military resort, which is really nice to get an opportunity to go. Coming home, encountered some cold fuzzies in San Francisco. But when I got to LAX, I had my wife greet me and my daughter, and so that was wonderful. Again, the profession of arms is a challenge. It's difficult. I spent 6 years on active duty. When they didn't need us anymore, they got rid of us. And I spent the next 21 or so years in the Guard and did all kinds of things. And that was an adventure as well. As I look around the room and you ask about the Vietnam veterans of our day, and I say we were successful. And sure, we live with with traumatic strain and all that stuff, and some of us get reimbursed for that. But you look at us and we were successful. We've led large corporations, and one night outside of Cu Chi, I talked to a helicopter pilot that was bringing in gunfire from his Cobra, and lo and behold, it's Charlie Laughlin, who owns Aspen Helicopters. Very successful businessman. Have a neighbor who very successful hotel guy, and all the way through industry and everything else, the Vietnam vets have been successful. So I'll be happy to answer any questions with respect to my experience in Vietnam or overall with the other millions of folks that went through my life in the Army. Cool, thank you.
Jess Ramirez enlisted in the U.S. Army after graduating from Oxnard High School in 1964, same year as I did. Yeah. Not from that school, though, I went to Hoover. After serving 6 months in Europe as a U.S. Army helicopter mechanic, he was sent to Cam Ranh Bay to unload cargo ships from, of all places, Port Wayne. He returned home in February 1968, and now you're on, Jess.
Thank you. I knew that I was, some of you heard my story before, right? My entire life story. I'm not going to tell you that story today. Because I don't have enough time. I could talk about my story forever. First of all, I did join the Army, kind of prematurely, because I was going to join the Army after I went to college for 2 years. But unfortunately, my high school sweetheart broke up with me while I was in high school. So I figured, well, you know what? What's the use? Then Paul Anka came with this song, Lonely Boy. So I gotta get on it. But see, I knew that I was gonna join the Army because when I was 9 years old living in El Paso, Texas, I had gone to the movies and I saw Elvis Presley, GI Blues, and it was in Europe. And I said, you know what? I'm gonna do the same thing he's doing. I go to Europe and have a good time. So I joined the Army. So at that time, you could sign up for an assignment or a school. Well, I had gotten a D in biology in Ventura College in 1965, 64, so I wasn't about to finish my school. So I chose Europe unassigned. I figured, well, I'll join the Army and go to Europe and do what Elvis Presley does and have a good time and travel all over the country. I didn't realize there was a war going on in the Far East, all right? I don't know whether I would have joined if I would have known. But anyway, I was in there already. So I go to basic training in Fort Polk, Louisiana. I joined in February, so it was kind of cool. Finished basic training in Fort Polk. Went to Alabama, Fort Rucker, Alabama for helicopter school. So I was trained as a helicopter mechanic. Went to the H-13s, H-13s and 23s and UH-1s. UH-1s are the Kiwis, all right? There was 42 of us in our unit. 41 of them were USs, draftees, 1 RA, me. So they kept making fun of me, Jess, you're gonna go to Vietnam with us. I said, no, I'm not. I joined. They can't send me to Vietnam. The commitment is to send me to Europe. Actually, I want to go to France because I want to learn French and drink their wine and get to know their women. But they sent me to Germany. Okay. So I finished my helicopter school. They all left for the 1st Cav Division because crew chief on Hueys are also the gunners. All right, because they cannot afford the space, so everybody gets utilized. So they all left. I have never kept in touch with any of them, so I don't know their destiny. I don't know what happened. Okay. Now this morning before I came here, I did call my friend Robert Spilo from Rhode Island, who was with me in Vietnam. Okay. So Finally, after becoming a chaplain's assistant in Fort Eustis for about 3 months, they realized that I was there for more school, so they sent me to Chinook School, which is a double tandem rotor helicopter, the big one, the CH-37. CH-47, yeah, see, I'm forgetting, 51 years ago, long time ago. So I finally wound up in Europe. They sent me to Munich, Germany, which is known for their excellent beer. Well, I don't like beer, so I was there for 6 months, and I was watching the Bob Hope show from Cameron Bay, and I'm feeling guilty because now I feel, you know, I shouldn't even be here, you know, in this nice barrack. I should be in Vietnam. Few months later, we get called that they need us in Vietnam. So thousands of us were pulled out of the European theater, came to Fort Eustis, got trained as longshoremen. All right. So there we are trained. This guy's from all over fields, all kinds of fields. So we were trained as longshoremen in Fort Eustis for 2 months, day and night, and they put us on a CH-37. C-130. You're here with me, Tony. C-130. Yeah, no, I did not. We went to high school together, by the way. So put us in C-130, 56 hours flying time after stopping in San Francisco, Hawaii, Guam, all over the place. We finally landed in Cameron Bay. Okay, they didn't tell us where we were gonna go, but we knew we were going. We were all combat ready with our rifles and everything else. So we landed in Cameron Bay, and for the first month we filmed with sandbags. You know, sandbags to form our perimeter, protect our perimeter. And we started unloading ships. Now, most of my friends that I hang around with, they're all Vietnam vets. They all got all kinds of awards. So they kept me that make fun of me because they tell me that I wasn't really in the war. You know, well, which is probably true. You know, I mean, I was there. It's like a bad dream. I never fired my rifle. Only when one time we went to the rifle range and qualify again. You know. So Vietnam didn't cost anything about it. There was 200 of us in our unit, and basically what I did, I mean, there were kids here, they're from all over the country who had a sort of a negative stereotype of what a Mexican was like. So they all thought that I carry a knife and play the guitar. Okay, well, hell, I don't play the guitar and I carry a knife. Okay? So my year in Vietnam with Cameron Bay, and then we moved to Long Binh, was educating all these young men from all over the country that, you know, all Mexicans don't carry knives, you know. So I had a kind of a decent time. Then I was very resourceful. I was a photographer, so I took Polaroid pictures. So everybody loved me. When we went to the village with the girls loved me because I took their pictures, and like GIs, I sold pictures for a living while I was in Vietnam. Right? So I was a very popular soldier there. They all liked me. So when we moved to Long Binh from Cameron Bay, this is where the sad part comes in though. We established a camp, and they asked for volunteers. We could either continue being a stevedore and go to the Saigon River outside Saigon and unload the ships, or stay back and build a camp. Well, because of my background, construction, my father was a stonemason, I knew something about cement. So I volunteered to stay back and build our camp. I was in charge of the cement detail. Where my best friend from Vietnam, Robert Spilo, who's now dying of Agent Orange, chose to remain a stevedore, so he continued going to Saigon River, unloading the ships. So now that him and I talk about it, and he's sick and I'm not, he said, Jess, well, don't you remember unloading that ship from the ships, which was Agent Orange. Okay. So he got contaminated, unloading the stuff on the ships, and I didn't. And you know, and I feel bad because I tell Bob, hey, when you know you're gonna die, man, let me know, because you know I want to see you one more time. And that's my story, you know, very simple. And you know, now I'm back, so now I'm working across the street as a longshoreman. So you know, what can I say?
Commissioner.
Pardon?
And a commissioner.
And a commissioner, yeah. Yeah. And I still don't carry a knife. Even though, now that I'm a longshoreman, I should carry a knife, but even now I don't carry a knife, so. Yes, sir.
Yeah, you mentioned something about like, oh, you have to like kind of tell your other friends or buddies that non-Mexicans carry guitars or knives. Was there any other kind of tension? I mean, this was the 60s and 70s. Was there any
Well, okay,
things that you guys
within our community, I'm talking about my Mexican community, we're very proud military people. There's no discrimination. Everybody loves us. The fact that we wore uniforms to protect this country, even though with all the injustices that happened, we're still very proud. We're still very proud group. And when I came back, I didn't feel any discrimination whatsoever about being in Vietnam. I have now, my daughters who are now all college graduates have a whole different perspective on the wars, but not in my case. Okay.
Other questions?
Yeah, here. I'm sorry about your buddy that is dying from Agent Orange. Agent Orange was a defoliant that they used in Vietnam to get rid of all kinds of growth in the area, to open it up so as troops we could see what was out there. Because a lot of the brush out there was very thick. There are a lot of Vietnam veterans that were up on the lines who were affected by Agent Orange. I've already had cancer surgery from Agent Orange, cancer of the prostate. And there are a lot of other conditions that have occurred as a result of the use of Agent Orange. Honestly, the United States should have never used it. Canada told them that not to use it, but they used it anyway. And for a lot of troops, a lot of troops that were over there, even ones that were unloading the 55-gallon drums of it, all know that it was very harmful, and a lot of Americans came back with cancer and all kinds of different problems as a result of the use of Agent Orange in Vietnam.
Other questions?
I have a question for Frank.
Pass it to Frank.
I just needed to get your picture, so I wanted the microphone in your hand. So, when you were in Vietnam as a clerk, so how many thousands of soldiers were processed through whatever administrative? Was it a real challenge to keep track of everybody, or? Because I always find that amazing.
That wasn't my job. I was the clerk typist. I don't know. I worked in officer personnel. We had about 100 or so records that we kept for officers, and anyway, we had 2 brigades of combat engineers, 18th and 20th Engineer Brigades, and so there was an officer section and an enlisted section, and but there was thousands more service-type troops than combat troops. It was just unbelievable. Long Binh was a huge, sprawling post, very big.
Tony, did you want to say?
Yes, with respect to the last question, there was 3 corps in Vietnam, and each corps has about 50,000 folks in it. So that's 150. Then you got to remember that for each soldier, there was 3 to 4 folks in the rear to support them, which basically says, I agree with what you're saying. So it's probably about 400,000 or so people in Vietnam at any one point in time. Jim was saying earlier that he went to machete training, and I encountered a bamboo viper one morning while we were clearing in LZ. And in jungle school in Panama, they showed us how to cut bamboo at a 45-degree angle. And Jim, I hope that's what you learned, because this viper was really unhappy with us. You spoke about Bob Hope, and that was around the 26th to the 27th of December in '68. I encountered Bob Hope and his party, at Cu-Chi on the airhead or at the airport. And my recollection is a major coming over and telling us, you have to move your company because you're dirty and you're ugly, so move away because we don't want Bob Hope to see you. Yes, absolutely. And so company commander and the rest of us, we moved off the flight line. And later that day we got showers and new uniforms. But we spent 3 to 4 weeks in the bushes, and we might get laundry every 3 weeks, and we were up to our own self to shower and do our personal hygiene. As I look around the room, I see all these things that I grew up with here in Port Hueneme. On the 26th of December, and I remember this vividly, we were in Convoy getting ready to leave, and I looked down outside the mess hall, and there was a box of lemons that came from Sunkist Lemons in Oxnard. Completely blew me away. And you talked about some of the Hispanics in the Army. Oxnard has a Medal of Honor winner. His name is Al Rascon. And we have another fellow that's in line, hopefully, for that recognition. Al Rascon went to elementary school and high school with my wife, and we see him from time to time at reunions. But Al wanted to be in the Army when he was 11 years old, and he jumped out of a tree with a makeshift parachute and broke his arm. Yeah, and he was airborne. So it's interesting. Vietnam was a very interesting place, and I frankly enjoyed my time there. I enjoyed the camaraderie of my troops and some of the experiences.
Now, on the ones that have Purple Hearts, we do have an active club in Ventura. Now it covers Van Nuys all the way up to Toledo. And we meet at the Veterans Home 1 month, and we meet at VFW on the beach in Santa Barbara the next month. And if any of you are good Purple Hearts and want to come and take part, just come on out, let us know, and I can get you the dates that we have our meetings. But I wanted to say I stayed in, when I went into school district and management, I went to Sergeant College, wound up getting 2 degrees, plus served on the city council for 8 years. And so this is my new home.
Oh, I'm afraid.
May the 9th, we're having a grand opening of a new VA center clinic here in Oxnard. Are you aware of that?
It's an open house.
Open house, yeah. Anyway, on my union, the ILWU, long-term union across the street, we're going to be providing all food for that, hamburgers. Okay.
Before we go, I'd like to have every one of the Vietnam vets in the audience stand up. So starting back in the back, stand up and just introduce yourself. Any Vietnam vets anywhere in here? Yes.
$1,000.
What unit were you with?
Tell us what unit you were with, too.
Special Forces Group down in Delta.
Okay?
Neil Dean, I was C-135, 65,
A C-130 pilot.
flew 16 planes.
Go.
My name is Pete Schultz. I was with the 1st Engineer Battalion, Tunnel Rat.
Tunnel rat, okay.
He was real skinny then.
My name is Edward Rascon. I was with the U.S. Navy in Nape, 20 miles from Saigon.
Thank you for your service. And
George Todd. I was with Charlie Company, 1st Battalion, 26 Marines. Hoorah.
He's had his hand up for 5 minutes. Go ahead.
Tom Dunn, and I was stationed here with the CBs in CB Unit 3.